Hey guys, in today's video, I want to give advice on starting a successful podcast. I have been doing a podcast for since I think February, so like 3, 4 months now. And it has been going really, really well. Since the very, very beginning, it has been going phenomenally well. And this isn't just to brag or boast or anything like this. Like I genuinely just want to give advice. One of my greatest piece of advice whenever interviewing or simply just having a conversation is be the listener. Do not listen with the intention for you to reply, but listen with the intent to genuinely understand what it is they are actually saying. And if you can seriously just be a good listener, you are going to be a great conversationalist. You have to be a great listener. Yeah, it all begins there. And let's go here. So the reason why I bring that up too is you have to be a good listener is because when you are interviewing people, these are some of the people I've interviewed so far. This episode got released today. When you are interviewing people and you ask them a question and they start talking, do not interrupt them. Do not talk if they have a similar topic that you are working on or you are doing, do not then transition into talking about yourself. If you want to be a great conversationalist, you have to give them the spotlight. You have to make them feel seen, heard, and valued. And in order to do so is you have to listen. And again, do not wait for you to jump into the conversation and, take the spotlight or take away the conversation. You have to be a good listener. That's a great way to be a great conversationalist. If you really, really pay attention to people who have conversations, a lot of people will be like, oh, I love conversating with them. And those people who have those thoughts were, oh, I had a great conversation with them. I guarantee you 90% of that conversation was them doing the talking and 10% of the other individual just simply listening. And you can even look it up. There's an article and things talked about that. But you just have to be a great listener. And it's okay, like if you're having a conversation, for example, there was a conversation um was here with Corey Sims, who was actually the finalist for Beast Games Season 2. Great story. All of these people are phenomenal stories, great, great stories. And I'm so incredibly grateful for every single one of them that I have had the opportunity to interview. And during the conversation, for example, I want to highlight is when I was interviewing Corey Sims, is I don't want to spoil it, so you guys can listen to it yourself. But when I was interviewing Corey, he talked about a particular dark season that he was navigating through when he was really, really young. And he said he never shared that with anyone, but he was comfortable with me and he was comfortable with me and he was willing to share that season, that part, that story of his life with not just myself, but with the audience. And when he talked about that dark season, I then talked just to kind of like give a relation to like, oh, I understand what you're going through, or there was a dark season of my past where, and then I talk like a very briefly about it. It's like 10 to 15 seconds. And then I don't wait for them to give a response. I then, after I tell a short little portion, just so we can kind of relate and understand each other at a much more depth, then I automatically smoothly transition into the next question. So it's never I ask them a question, they answer, and then I take away the conversation. It's always I ask them a question, they answer, and depending on the way the conversation is going, maybe I will have to share a glimpse or a similar path experience or something that we can both relate to. And then immediately I will then transition into the next question. I don't wait, I don't give a pause for them to then ask me a little bit more about my story because the conversation when you are podcasting, especially when you are interviewing other people, it's all about them. You want to highlight them. You want them to feel seen, valued, and heard. And this is the biggest piece of advice I can give for anyone interviewing, for anyone wanting to start a podcast or has a podcast and just wants to be a greater host, a better host. This is my greatest piece of advice. And these are all the people I interviewed. This guy, I wanted him to be my first. He is, I have known him for 16 plus years. I have known this guy since the seventh grade. And I wanted him to be the first. It's a little bit of sentimental um value or moments behind it. So I really wanted him to be first. Great guy. He also has his own podcast as well. And then the next guest, which was a multi-time best-selling author, which is really, really cool. He actually happened to have or happens to have SMA type 3. I personally have SMA type 2. So it was really nice to kind of talk a little bit and kind of have similar life experiences to some extent and great people and just phenomenal. This guy right here is a Guinness World Record holder. I didn't know it at the time. I actually reached out to him. I found him pretty remarkable, so I reached out to him. All of these people I find remarkable, so I ended up reaching out to him. And I want you guys to understand something. Is there's how many people have I interviewed so far? Like 15 people? I think like 15 people so far. And there's something I really want you guys to understand is in the very beginning, when I was interviewing these people, I genuinely, one, have no idea how I was able to get these people, especially early on, just starting out. I mean, my best friend, of course, he's going to say yes, right? But to get like everybody else afterwards, I genuinely have no idea how I was going to make it happen. I simply just would reach out, send a message, and just introduce who I am briefly, introduce what the podcast is about. And I'll show you guys as well. I tell them what the podcast is about. I'll have this, but I'll shorten it, much more shorter. So it's not too much information to kind of process and go through. And I'll send them a DM on either Instagram. Primarily, it's Instagram, and sometimes it'll even be emails as well. But I am not kidding. So I have interviewed 15 people so far. In total, there's about 21 people, I believe. The other episodes are still pending and coming. So I currently upload every single Wednesday on this YouTube channel, which is Become the Victor. And the link is also within the description. And or you guys can simply search Become the Victor podcast on not only YouTube, but Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, in addition to Spotify, and you guys will see my podcast. And so here I have interviewed again in total, like I think 21 people. I believe it's like 21 people. So literally for the month of May, I'm booked. For the month of June, I'm already booked. Any recordings I do now is for the month of July, which is really, really cool because at one point I was struggling and wondering, okay, who am I going to get on my show next week? And so it's really, really cool. But where I am going with this conversation is I have interviewed these people, right? And you might see like, oh, that's cool, especially in the very, very beginning stages. Like it's crazy how seriously how all of this happened. Like this guy right here is very short. This one, and I'll talk a little bit more about this one, especially why it's so short. But what I want to highlight first is when I would reach out to these people, I am not kidding. Every single night, I would seriously send about anywhere between 50 minimum to like 100 plus DMs on Instagram alone. I did not care about their audience size, whether they had 10,000 people following them or whether they had a million people following them. I seriously did not care. So I didn't care about the size. I just, did my work and let the universe kind of transpire the miraculous works and wonders that go on behind the scenes. And so after I would send out all these people, so literally I probably have sent out anywhere between few hundred, several hundred to maybe like 1,000 DMs, if a little less, maybe a little bit more. And those DMs also include emails as well. And if their Instagram bio had an email attached to it, I would send them a DM in addition to sending them an email as well. So literally trying to maximize my opportunity as possible. Oh, and in addition, I would even comment on their post, whether depending on the person, depending on the audience size, will determine how many times I comment on either one post, several posts, or maybe even a dozen posts. And I'll even comment, hey, I'm so and so. Would you be interested in my podcast? Something along those lines. So I would literally maximize my opportunity as much as possible. And the thing I found is entrepreneurship is a numbers game. So pretty much if you knock to give a simple analogy is if you knock on one door, you might hear a no, right? However, if you knock on 100 doors, the chances of you getting that one yes is more likely. So that was my mentality going into the process and yeah, so I would literally just send out again several hundred to maybe 1,000, if not a little more, a little less. Excuse me. And eventually I would get replies. Some people, the unspoken truth about doing this is some people will be highly interested and be like, oh yeah, send me more details. And then and like the way I structure it is I'll send them a message, and then if they're interested, then I'll send them a follow-up message with more details. And I would do that. So when I would do this, some people would be genuinely interested and be like, absolutely, send me more details. I would send them my calendar. I have a calendar that they can go to and it'll show them my availability. And I always tell all of my guests if there is a time or a date that doesn't quite align well for you, please let me know. I am pretty flexible. I would love to have you on the podcast. Every single person I reach out to is not just anyone, it's people I genuinely want to highlight their story, regardless of their size. I do not care if they're big or a big time creator or small time creator. It's all about someone that has a story worth sharing and telling. And and so I would do that. And so where I was going at this too is, some people would be genuinely interested, like these people here, for example, and I would get a response. Next, I get them on the calendar. Okay. Then there's also some people that would say, send me more details, and they book a call and they, send up so much hype, like, oh, I'm looking forward to it, yada, yada. I even had people and they wouldn't show up. And I would literally just sit in front of the camera waiting for them to join. Courtesy, 5 minutes goes by. Okay, I don't mention, I don't say anything. 10 minutes go by. 15 minutes is like my maximum. If you are not there within 15 minutes, then I'll leave the recording. And then I'll send a follow-up message. And some people just ignore you. Some people will give a genuine response, like, I am so sorry, something happened last minute, yada, yada, yada. And some of those people even rescheduled because they really did have something going on or that occurred last minute, and which is completely understandable. And then some people just simply just blow you off. And that comes with the territory. That happened numerous and several times. So with those people, what I began doing, and some people also even just forgot. So what I began doing, I mean, you kind of learn through trial and error, and especially as you go on. So what I started doing is the day before, depending on who it is, will determine what it is I do. For example, like this person here, I reached out to their team because they got me connected with their team. So I reached out to their team, I think like 48, 72 hours prior to the recording. And then I would reach out to them just to confirm our interview, make sure everything's good, make sure nothing came up. And they're like, yeah, yeah, sure. Or yeah, yeah, everything's set in stone, everything's good. And then there's other people who I would reach out either the day before, like 24, usually it's like 24 hours primarily, and then I'll send a confirmation message like, hey, making sure we are still good for tomorrow. Is everything good? And some people will say yes. Some people say, I am so sorry, something came up, let's reschedule. And again, some people do reschedule, and some people just blow you off, either maybe because they look you up and they realize you're not that big of a deal, or some people just really don't know how to say they are not interested. So they give up this hype and then they just simply just don't show up. Whatever the case may be, and there could be so many other factors that go on behind the scenes as well. But so yeah, so this is my greatest piece of advice is again, to be a great conversationalist is you have to be willing to listen. And you have to listen with the intention not to reply, but listen with the intention to understand what it is they are coming from. And when you listen, you not only get to hear much more of what it is they are saying, but then it branches off to so many other alternative areas you can begin to follow up with your next question. So this guy here, like I was saying, he is my shortest one. And this guy here, a very interesting guy, great guy. He really is. And but he was very different. What I mean by that is my first impression was he came off a little bit too much with a big ego. And overall he is a great guy though. He really is. But when I reached out to him, what I mean by that is he came in and he was like, and I sent them the message like, hey, this is what I'm doing. He was like, yeah, I'm interested. And he actually declines a lot of podcasts or a lot of interviews with a lot of people. I was genuinely surprised when he said, yes, I'm interested. Send me more details. So when it came to this guy, is he reached out to me and as we got on the call, he's in Dubai. So I am literally recording, I think like 10 o'clock at night. And we had an interview scheduled, but then he ended up reaching out and was like, hey, would you be available within the next hour? So mind you, this is like 8, 9 o'clock at night my time, but it's like early morning for him. And I was like, in an hour? Yeah, definitely I can do it. I wasn't doing anything. So it worked out. I already had the script and everything laid out and written and everything like that. I was all set in stone and it was super last minute. So I didn't even, again, early stages, you learn as you go pretty much. I did tell my mom, she said she didn't hear me, but now I know, okay, make sure she gives a response so that way she does hear you. But I told her, hey, I'm going to be doing an interview and that way I let her know so she doesn't have like the TV super loud. So it's so the audience or the person I am interviewing doesn't hear outside noise. My microphone is pretty good, but sometimes it does pick up background noise. And I told her, and then after I told her, she felt so bad and so sorry. And I was like, I told you, I was like, but it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's already done pretty much. And and now I know, again, anytime I'm recording, especially if it's super last minute, is I'll say, hey, I'm recording, and then I'll make sure I get a response. That way I know she registers or not registers, but here's what it is that I am saying. So when it came to this guy, it's very interesting conversation. So what I did originally, and in a second you'll understand why it correlates with this message is in the very beginning, I would script out my videos from the introduction to the questions I would ask all the way out to the introduction. And then of course, throughout the conversation, I'll throw in like a normal question of my own. Like not everything is robotic, and I only go based off of those questions. But that's how primarily I would record. So when I came to this guy, he said, hey, he was like, again, a great introduction, a great guy, but great guy. You like genuinely, he really is a nice guy. And so when we get on FaceTime and we get on the call, and he's like, we introduce ourselves and everything. And as we were talking, he was like, I want to do something different with you. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? And he was like, "Are you nervous?" And I was like, "No." And I was like, "You're human." I was like, "I'm not nervous just because you're human, just like I'm human." I was like, "I do not see a title. I see a person." And he really respected my answer because he was like, "Are you nervous?" Just because he's known. He's a quite of a big content creator, in addition to an entrepreneur. So, and I was like, no, I'm not nervous. I was like, I don't see a title. I see a person. That's just always been me. You can be the CEO of a company or you can be the janitor of a company, and I will seriously treat you the exact same. That's just been my character. That's just how my mom raised me to be. Respect, respect those, respect others how you wish to be, treat others how you wish to be treated. That's what my mom would always instill within me. And so as we were having the conversation, he was like, I want to do something different with you. He said, drop the script. He said, I want you to get rid of the script. He was like, whatever. He was like, oh, because I was looking at my script and I'm getting prepared to, do the introduction and then we can go on to the interview, right? And as I'm looking at it, he can tell like my eyes are here, right? And not here. and or not even looking at him, like he can just tell I was looking at something. And he was like, "What are you looking at?" And I was like, "I'm getting, excuse me." And I was like, I'm getting ready to do the introduction." And he was like, "I want you to get rid of," he was like, "whatever you're looking at, get rid of it." He was like, "Get rid of the introduction, get rid of the questions." He said, you and I, let's just have a humanized conversation." He was like, "You can record it, but let's just have a humanized conversation." And me, I'm always up for a challenge. My entire life has been nothing but a challenge. It's been nothing, it has never been anything close to being ordinary, whatever ordinary means. But so I was like, okay, challenge accepted. I didn't say that out loud. I just said it internally, challenge accepted. And little did I know, he would have actually been the biggest inspiration I would have needed, especially early on, starting my podcast, because he taught me, let's have a humanized conversation. Drop the formalities, drop the script. Let's just have a humanized conversation. And I really, really liked it. So this interview actually was, or not so much interview, I would call it conversation. This conversation was about maybe close to an hour and a half, a little bit less, a little bit more, roughly around there. And as we were going into the conversation, we just talked about anything and everything. And we really didn't even talk about much of his story. We just had a normal conversation. And as we were talking, I was like, okay, towards the very end of the episode, also, again, my mom didn't hear me when I said I was going to be recording. So, or my mom didn't hear me that I was going to be recording, so she had the TV pretty loud. And I guess you can hear it in the background. And you can hear it in the background. He was like, "What?" He was like, "Are you watching TV?" And I was like, "You can hear that?" He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "No, I'm not watching TV." One, that would have been really rude of me, right? But I was like, "I'm not watching TV. My mom is watching TV. She just has it really loud. I am so sorry. I genuinely apologize." And he was like, "Oh no, it's okay." Like, and then, we just kind of let it go. But during that time, that's when I learned, one is, again, make sure you get a response from your mom or anyone outside of the room to know, like, hey, I am going to be recording. Now I have a do not disturb sign. So if the door is closed and I have my sign up that says do not disturb, recording in progress, now they know. But even two, they will know if I'm doing an interview and things like that. So, I learned that. And then I learned also that recently my podcast, I will make another video talking about this, but even my podcast mic has updates. I did not know that. So my podcast mic wasn't even entirely to the best, just because it should have blocked out the outside noise. And I've tested it before and it worked. So during the conversation, he was like, drop the formalities. Let's just have a humanized conversation. Towards the end of the conversation, I'm like, okay, you know what? There's a lot of that conversation that for me just didn't align with what it is I wanted the podcast to be about. And at least not my podcast. And so I was like, okay, I was like, he was like, you know what? He was like, Victor, and he says it within the interview or towards the end of the video. He's like, if I were you, I would just clip out, the last 5 to 10 minutes of the conversation. I was like, realistically, I was thinking about doing that as well. And then so that happened. And but a great guy, and he seriously changed the whole trajectory of the way I began interviewing. I personally have always just been a good listener. um people the people I'm constantly just around is, they just love to do the talking. Even when you would try to speak, they would just over um over they would speak over you, if that makes any sense. So eventually you just learn, okay, just stay quiet and just let them talk. That's just as me. So during this conversation is I already so right up to I recorded him, is I also had already recorded, I think, these guys as well. So them was scripted as well, I believe. And you'll know as well. But then the rest I kind of just learn as you go. So the only thing I do now when I record is I literally just create an introduction just to highlight their story, who it is they are, what it is they do, just highlight their story. And then after the introduction, then I say, please welcome so and so. And then they say, hi everybody, or it is so great to be here with you, Victor, or how whatever they see fit. So then I'll do that. And then after that, it's just a humanized conversation with the main focus and primary intention of getting to know your story. What is your story? What is it that you have gone through? What is it that you have endured through? What is it that you want other people to know? What is it that you learned because of your process, because of your story? And that's my main focus, to highlight again their story, to understand what it is they have gone through, but not so much gone through, what it is they have overcame, what it is they learned within the process. And then I always ask a question, which I ask every single guest, and I completely overlooked and messed up with not I don't want to say messed up, but with Corey Sims, phenomenal guy. Like seriously, he's a very, very great man. It's genuinely an honor to seriously have them. It's don't get me wrong, it's great and an honor to have everyone, just because starting this from having zero guests to now having several or dozens technically, it's phenomenal, right? But when I was interviewing Corey, I completely overlooked to ask him the last question. And the question I ask every single one of my guests is, what is a question you wish more people asked you, but they don't? And I love that question just because, one, it is very thought-provoking, but a lot of people may look to these people and be like, oh, what's your story? Or ask them, what is it that you have been through, or what is it that you have gone through, or how do you stay so positive, or what keeps you going, things like that, like more generalized questions. But the question, every time I ask them that question, it is very different. It's a question that they are not going to be able to give a somewhat like a robotic answer with. For example, if I go up to you and I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Your natural response is going to be good or well, right? Just because it's normal. It's almost like you don't have to think too much about it. You just give an answer to it. But when I ask that question, it stops them in their tracks. Oh, they actually have to stop and think about it. And that's what I love, because it's a very thought-provoking. It is very, very different. And and I love the question because every single person has a very different answer, because the question again is so unique. So I pretty much just do my best just to stand out and stand out amongst the crowd. So this is my podcast here, and I recently also started doing shorts, YouTube shorts. I wasn't going to, but then I started doing it. So then I started doing YouTube shorts, and I upload for YouTube shorts. I upload every single day, and then it kind of leads into the next episode. So these are all my YouTube shorts here, and pretty phenomenal. I think like my most viewed is, I think she's like at 1100, roughly around there. And she's an American Idol contestant, and really, really cool. But this is my show here. Now, something I also want to highlight, and also I have all of my links. So anything and everything you want your audience to know, add them to your links. I think that's very important as well. And 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 then as well, so I want you guys to also highlight, and then also for my own personal documentation as well, is I started this YouTube channel in July of 2019. Okay, this YouTube channel was actually an entire different name, and it was a completely different channel. I actually had an entire YouTube team that helped produce content for this YouTube channel that I was running, and it was a faceless YouTube channel, which what people call it online, and or cash cow YouTube channel is another terminology that people say online as well. So I started this, and I actually generated like over 2 million views on this YouTube channel, literally. I remember in 24 hours, I gained like 600, 800,000 views within 24 hours. Within 24 hours, that is crazy to say. And really, really cool. But that long story short, that channel ended up becoming arguably the biggest failure of my entire entrepreneurship journey. And it definitely hurts to say that because only I know how much time, how much money, how much effort went into that. Several years I was working on that YouTube channel and it flopped. It hurt. Seriously, it did not, it was the biggest failure. And then, of course, I also did e-commerce in the past, but that's another conversation for another day. So that's why it says July of 2019. And so I gained a little over 3,000 subscribers just because of again because of the other channel name or the other content I was producing on this YouTube channel. Eventually, it flopped. It didn't do too well, so I removed everything off of the entire YouTube channel, and it was just sitting there collecting dust. So then I had this thought, and I currently am sitting at 14,121 views, and today is currently May 27th, 2026. So so this channel, literally, I removed everything from the channel just because it flopped, and I then it was just collecting dust. Then this thought came into my to mind after I published my book, Become the Victor: Turning Trials into Triumph. I can show you guys here really quick. And this is my book here. It'll pull up the photo. Excuse me. Talks about my book, talks about where it's available. My book, Become the Victor: Turning Trials into Triumph, is available at Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, iTunes, in addition to Google Play Books. And I also have an audiobook version in the works as well. And then I also have my podcast here, and then it takes them directly to all of the links here, which is YouTube, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, in addition to Spotify. And then I share what it is that it's about. And so what I did is after I released the book, Become the Victor, then I needed a little bit of an idea on how to market my book. And then this thought came into mind, why don't you name your podcast Become the Victor? And I thought about it, sat about it, and I was like, okay, if I name my podcast Become the Victor, what is it going to be about? To cut everything short, then my next title of the book, which was Turning Trials into Triumph, I was like, that's a great one. To highlight other people's stories that have turned their own trials into a triumph, turned any form of a testimony, any form of a test into a testimony. And it was a light bulb moment. Fell in love with it, and the rest is history. It's phenomenal. It's been great. Eventually, I would love to seriously do in-person interviews. Unfortunately, right now, I just don't have the opportunity to, I guess you can say. I would genuinely love to do this in person, and I also would seriously love to have this turn into a TV show. I think that would be really, really cool. And I'll make another video talking about it, but I'll talk about those who inspired me with this show and why I do what it is that I do when it comes to this show. So stay tuned for the next video because I will share about that, how this YouTube channel kind of came into play. But this is the greatest piece of advice I can give you guys, like genuinely. And although I'm not a big time, I'm not a big shot, I really, I mean, I'm getting some pretty phenomenal people. Like I'm not saying this just to brag or boast, but seriously, like I'm getting some pretty phenomenal people, especially like so young into this. I am not kidding when I said this. I struggled and wondered, okay, who am I going to get on next week's episode? Who am I going to get? And eventually I went from being underbooked to being overbooked, where now literally I am recording. Every recording I do now is for the month of July. Like just think about that. I'm a month in advance with pre-recordings, and the guests to come are also remarkable. It's been a phenomenal experience, and all of these people just have a story, and it's really great too because it one I didn't know this. This wasn't my intention doing it, But, when I would interview these people, you also develop a much bigger, stronger network. And it's been phenomenal. Like every single one of these individuals knows somebody, or somebody knows somebody, to say the least. And it's really amazing to have gotten these people on my show. Like I've interviewed several Beast Game contestants. I've interviewed someone who is making waves in the BMX industry. It really, really cool. This guy actually interviewed me in 2020 when I was undergoing a very dark, turbulent season within my life. Long story short, January 2020, I was on a psychiatric hold, navigating depression and amongst all of these different just going through a season, to say the least, a very, very dark, ugly season within my life. And that's how I become the victor, turning trials into triumph came into play. Little did I know that would happen, but he actually interviewed me while I was navigating that process. So that was pretty cool. Guinness World Record holders, serial entrepreneurs, best-selling authors. My best friend who is also advocating for muscular dystrophy awareness, phenomenal guy as well. And another guy who is spreading Becker muscular dystrophy awareness, which is another diagnosis within the muscular dystrophy family. And, again, I interviewed a BMX who is making waves and doing that, interviewed and several Beast Games contestants, interviewed someone on the show Extracted who was actually one of the finalists. Really cool. Like, literally, I would just, American Idol contestant who has a phenomenal story as well. Again, everyone has a phenomenal story. A big shot in real estate named Gogo Bethke, and crazy story. Like there's so many, everyone has a story, and I'm just incredibly grateful to have these individuals and these guys, and like this guy right here, Tanner Planis. I have known this guy literally since the very beginning I don't want to say the very beginning, but right about the beginning, early stages of his entrepreneurial journey. And known this guy for like 8+ years roughly. Great guy, and I never got to meet him in person yet. I would love to, and we talked about that. But great guy, and he actually mentored me a few times when I was in e-commerce and navigating that entrepreneurial journey and process. So it was really cool to have him on my podcast. And now he has a company who he is partnered with a friend of his, where they generated 300+ million for clients alone. Crazy. And he's so young. Her, Neha Jack, phenomenal and great person as well, who is a trader. She deals with like Forex and stocks and crypto and things like that. So really, really cool. And everyone has a story, and I just love it because the main intention isn't just to be like, okay, what's your story? Right? It's all about, okay, what is your story? But what is it that you can teach others who are navigating a similar path? Excuse me. Because right now, I think, especially in the way the world currently is we all need, I feel like we're immersing ourselves in so much darkness. We are being consumed by so much darkness. And I think not just myself, but highlighting other people that has gone through seasons of their life and overcame it. That's not only where inspiration comes from, but transformation comes from. Because out of all of these people and the people to come, people are not only going to be able to resonate with, but they are going to be able to connect with on alternative level, where they themselves are going to feel less alone, and they themselves are going to feel empowered that they too can achieve the impossible. And that's all it's about. It's all about, especially the youth. I think, like, literally, arguably right now, the youth is going to be our future. So in order for us to take care of our future, we have to begin to protect and take care of the youth, those to come. Because the little ones now are not going to be little forever. They are going to be our leaders. and we need to protect them, guide them, and deliver them the necessary tools so they can not only just lead, but be a great leader. Because anyone can be in a position of influence, but not everyone is going to be in a position to lead, not so much by example, but lead with the intention where they can pull other people along with them. We need to seriously work on that, especially with the way the world is going. We are in some very dark times, turbulent times, and nothing is going to get better if it is we, us leaders, whether you have a title or not, can lead by example. Be the reason why people feel like light does exist. Things do get better. Because again, it is we, the people, that only hold the opportunity to create a better future, a healthier tomorrow. And I hope you guys gained value from this video. The end got really, really deep, but I hope you guys gained value, but that's what it's all about. And phenomenal people, great people. I upload every Wednesday, and again, great people. I'm so incredibly grateful for the journey. I'm incredibly grateful for the people, everyone that has said yes, everyone that even said no, and even those that ignored me, even those that um, simply just said, sorry, I can't do it right now. I'm genuinely grateful for everything because it all led me here. And if you guys can take away anything from this video, it's that nothing changes if nothing changes. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And as always, remember, grow through what you go through. Much love.